Hello, welcome everyone. You are with the Gaming Enthusiast podcast number 2. Tonight you're joined with Minash, the site owner.
Hi everyone.
Anthony, the chief editor.
Hey everyone.
Tom, the feature editor.
Hey.
And myself, Simon. So great guys, this is our second podcast. And thanks for all the feedback from the previous podcast. I hope you're going to enjoy it. And the third subject for tonight is...
Should we just get the elephant out of the room?
Go ahead.
Thank you 4chan and 9gag for downvoting our video.
You basically making it a happy place.
Yeah, it wasn't us who posted it there. It was a troll. So if you do come on and you want to listen to the first minute over here, you should know that it's not us doing it. Okay, that's it.
So I thought the first subject for tonight would be Battlefield. EA actually published a 17-minute trailer of that game. And guys, would you like to share your opinions on that?
Yeah. How about Anthony? You start.
So,
you were pretty opinionated about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, like, if I take, like, Battlefield 3 as an example, I can see that the single player's probably been jumped up quite a bit in the fourth one. It looks a lot more fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, the thing that confuses me is there's two things that are sort of bothering me. One is that, first of all, it looks really similar to the last Battlefield game graphically, yet we've been told it's a new engine. But the most confusing thing is that, obviously, the trailer it's impressive technically. There's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Probably a lot that these consoles can't do that we've got at the moment.
Yeah.
But they're reluctant to say which next-gen consoles they're working on. And in fact, even went as far as to say that they feel that one company isn't going to do so well next-gen. And I think it's a bit weird to show us this high-end PC render and then say, you might not hit this target again.
Right. Well, it also brings us back to the whole EA in general, like what is going on with EA at the moment. Yeah. You know, that's pretty big news from last week, right? That the CEO was fired, or sorry, he resigned.
Yeah,
is it? Why is it that I didn't hear about that?
Yeah, he resigned.
Yeah, John Riccitiello resigned just recently.
Yeah, then
another big resignation is Yoichi Wada too.
Yeah, a few days later came Square Enix.
Yeah.
So, two big companies losing their CEOs within a week of each other. So people are really like wondering what is going. Like, is this going to really be the future of gaming? Like just the main 6 publishers or so.
You know, I'm thinking they're going to swap places. So Yoichi Wada will go to EA.
Yeah, that would be nice.
EA CEO will go to Square Enix. That will be funny to see.
Yeah. I'd be really embarrassed if I was like one of these CEOs and you have to like say, sorry, I failed, goodbye. No, it's sort of like a black mark.
The explanation as to why they quit. I mean, except for the official statement, was there any explanation behind the scenes, you know, as to what was the real reason for that?
Well, for Yoichi Wada, I know they missed their sales targets and they're expected to fall short of around 10 billion yen in the rest of this fiscal year.
Uh-huh.
I think
that's a reason good enough.
And that's pretty much been going on for a long time now.
For Square Enix.
Square Enix. And this is with Tomb Raider selling really well.
Yeah, this is bizarre. I think they set their goals too high. I think they're expecting really huge sales for Deus Ex, Tomb Raider, and what was the third game? Sleeping Dogs. I think they expected great sales from each one. And
right.
But what they said about Sleeping Dogs was that it was more of a marathon runner, basically. They said it's like Just Cause 2, where the game initially didn't sell very well, but then over
picked up Steam or something.
Yeah, they would sell a lot of numbers.
Yeah, it's true. Like, it got a lot of good press after just gamers played it. Then I started to hear about it, like, oh yeah, this is a really great game.
So presumably, given 2 more years, that game will reach some kind of decent sale number.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you know, with Square Enix, it's just a case of not producing high quality games anymore. I mean, they went into publishing, more so than developing, isn't it? I mean, when you think about developing, they've only done Final Fantasy, which was, what you can argue, wasn't as good as it should be. And then, the whole company, they basically relies on that IP solely. And so they're trying to move away from that, by purchasing Eidos with Tomb Raider, Hitman, having all these different IPs, which is great. But the problem is that in a lot of those cases, obviously they've missed the sales targets for whatever reason. And I don't think it's a reason to resign. If I was Yoichi Wada, I think they should probably refocus on what's their main target, because when you think Square Enix, you don't think Tomb Raider, you're thinking Final Fantasy. And the problem is that because they've made a name for themselves in industry on Final Fantasy, and now they're moving away from that, it's sending you a confusing message as to what they're trying to do with themselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does, yeah. And they're spreading themselves very, very well. I wouldn't even say they're spreading themselves thin. They're handling things really strangely with Final Fantasy. They're announcing titles all over the place, not even giving names sometimes, just saying, oh, we're making one for PlayStation 4. It's like, we're still waiting on news from a game that was announced 6 years ago. I mean, they really need to get their act together with their main IP, definitely. And
Final Fantasy is interesting these days because, some people love it, some people hate it. It sells pretty well, but it's very different than the classic Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
And then that's just Square Enix as a developer, as a publisher. Then they're doing Tomb Raiders and Sleeping Dogs. It's very interesting just to see their whole, how that company is formed.
I wonder.
Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
Okay. I wonder if maybe there's some kind of strife within the company that we're not being told about. Because, as you say, they release games lately like Just Cause and Tomb Raider and stuff, and sorry, what was that one? The
Sleeping Dogs.
Sleeping Dogs, yeah, sorry, man.
Sorry.
But and okay, apart from Tomb Raider, they haven't been huge hits, but they haven't been flops either. They've made money and stuff. So I don't know. I wonder if maybe there's something going on within the company.
Internally, you mean?
Yeah.
Could be mutiny, or fighting over the direction of the company, or something like that. Yeah, that could be.
I get the feeling that's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
When you step into the next generation, there's a huge shift in what the company will represent and how is it going to support the new generation gaming market. And I think that could be a reason, perhaps Yoichi Wada felt like I didn't do a good job with this generation. Square Enix has lost lots of his followers because of their actions, and maybe it wasn't to do with anything recent that the company has done, but maybe it was an overall feeling that that he's got, that perhaps under his direction the company was basically sank. It lost its reputation. But it's Anthony. You mentioned the Final Fantasy 13 versus. Interestingly enough, one of the clothing designers for Final Fantasy 13 versus apparently listed in his biography working on Final Fantasy 15. So there are rumors as to versus being basically renamed into a completely new project and basically being made into next generation Final Fantasy 15 rather than being versus 13, which could turn out to be true. They've been working on the game for 6 years, and that's the alarm going off for someone.
Not for me.
And obviously it would be really upsetting to see the project going wasted. They've been working on it for so many years, and from what we've seen, it looks really promising. But the problem is because 13 became irrelevant after 13.2 and Lightning Returns, and I think they might have realized that and they might have changed the direction, but at the same time keeping all the existing assets of the game that are already created.
Right.
I think that's pretty possible, considering they renamed Agito to Typo.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for it.
Yeah, true, we are. They I think they're pretty adamant about that not coming out over here now, because they seem to be talking more about the HD remake of Final Fantasy X and X-2.
Who
Right.
cares? Like, seriously, who the fuck cares about 10? If you want to play it, play on a PS2.
Yeah, that's basically what I feel. Because, like, I still have played it recently even on PS2. So I'm like, okay, so it's a little bit, HT right now. It doesn't really make a difference for me.
I have to say I'll probably get it again, but that's mostly because my PlayStation 2 is completely dead.
Just
Why
get
for
you-
that?
Right, I guess if somebody doesn't have it now and they would want to replay it, then they could do it. But
Oh, there's an idea for you. How about you go to a shop and buy it for like less than 100
Right.
bucks, isn't it?
right,
Yeah.
for less than the
Because
price of the
cheap,
new one.
so, yeah. But they made a huge deal out of the HD remake, and they got sometimes really hyped out about, making remakes for all the Final Fantasy titles. And when you think about Square Enix, all you think is like those HD remakes, because that's what they're doing. Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4 remakes on the Nintendo consoles, etc. I honestly don't care about the remake of 10 because I didn't like the original one. I couldn't stand Tidus and his annoying laughing voice. And everything else about the game.
Which Final Fantasies were you a fan of?
Well, 7, 8, and 9.
I happen to have loved 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and nothing else. Well, maybe 4 or 5. I forget which one.
I used to like number 8 until I played it quite recently, and I don't know. I guess now I find Squall a little bit too whiny. I don't know. Maybe I'll find that same problem with Tidus when I read.
Yeah, Squall's like a little bit girly. Like he's like feminine and fragile.
He's a bit emo really now that we've got
Yeah,
comparison, isn't he?
Right, now that we know what emo is, he's emo probably.
Yeah.
Emo was popular back in the days. Nowadays,
Yeah.
everyone wants to be an emo.
Right.
So it became more of a mainstream rather than a cool thing. But you have to praise Ni no Kuni because they moved away from that stereotype of making a really whiny main character, So they went for this honest, pure character. That was the what was the main character name in Ni no Kuni?
Oliver.
Oliver. Thank you.
Right.
It was a nice step forward to see a different type of character development in the game. And you have to remember that this is very typical JRPG game, isn't it? And yet they decided not to stick to the formula.
Yeah, what was that whole fad of making whiny characters? Was there like a reasoning behind it, or was it just like the new thing? Like until
It's a new thing, yeah.
Just
But,
like
it's
the-
like Twilight, basically. No one really gets it, but everyone likes it.
right.
I mean, when I say everyone, I don't mean myself.
Yeah. Just like to exclude myself from
Right.
that.
I'm the exception that make the rule, basically.
Wait, but I'm a Twilight like fanboy. No, I'm just kidding. No way. That would be like a real surprise, no? Like plot
Just
twist.
find a death sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, like okay, abandoned site. But
So
yeah, but
anyway,
like in a row, they first had what's his name in Final Fantasy VII? Cloud.
yeah.
Cloud was like really annoying and grumpy.
Yeah,
Then
that was a new thing, man.
that was the new thing, right there. That was where they like did their first move.
Yeah.
They actually did it recently with The World Ends With You. Do you know that game on DS?
No, but I haven't played it.
Yeah, that's basically my favorite JRPG of the past 5 years. And Nico, the main character, is actually pretty similar to Cloud, though, which I didn't like, but the rest of the game is good.
It came out on iPhone quite recently. They've announced it on iPhone platform, isn't it?
Yeah, they ported it, yeah.
They already did.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
Have you had a chance to play on an iPhone?
No, because I think they're charging like $30 or something, and I already played it on DS, so yeah.
30 quid. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've noticed that some of these bigger publishers tend to expect console prices on mobile platforms.
Yeah,
No.
Noticed,
either.
Final Fantasy Generations is £20 on the Android store.
right. Especially Square Enix. Square Enix is very into iPhone to mobile in general. They're like porting everything there these days. You know.
They made the announcement a couple of weeks ago, basically apologizing for the company focus on basically remakes and games that no one basically gave a shit about.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that the new target for the company is basically to look at the loyal fans and deliver what they want, because the truth is that in a recent motion they had high emphasis on social media gaming, and frankly that's just really awkward. And so hopefully they'll move away from social media / remakes iPhone games that are like hugely expensive onto proper games, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
That's
would
what
be good.
EA was doing as well. Go on, Tom, sorry.
Tom?
Sorry, no, I didn't say anything.
Yeah, that was Anthony. That was actually
Tom.
Anthony.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sorry, I was just chiming in and agreeing. Don't worry, we can cut this little confusing section out at the end.
Yeah. Hey! Oh, sorry. I had something crazy. You know, like,
Put that in.
woo, woo.
Yeah, that'll be where it comes back.
Yeah. Now you guys have a clear landmark of where you should cut it out. Just in case you didn't know.
And essentially EA was doing the same thing with the social media, Facebook games. Obviously people play it, otherwise they wouldn't do it. They make some money on it. The problem with it obviously is that it reduces the company image in the eyes of loyal fans, which they don't care about social media games, they don't care about handheld games. When I say handheld, I mean like iPhone games or iPad games.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a new gaming trend, you know?
The social gaming?
Yeah, I mean, it's been with us for a while, but is it going to be a new shift?
Yeah, I think it seems like it's become a really big shift, and really companies these days are doing anything that they can to stay afloat and like stay above the red line. So I think that that even the Nintendo's investors are all screaming at them that you should start bringing your games to mobile phones. They're really upset that they're not. They're one of the only companies who aren't.
And I think they did a good job by not actually doing it.
Yeah, I think that Nintendo fans are pretty happy about that. But every other company pretty much is trying to leverage all the mobile and social gaming they can to make a quick buck,
Do you know what it is? If anything else, it reminds me of a book market, basically. Nowadays, e-readers, like Kindle, are basically more popular.
Mm-hmm.
People tend to borrow books less so because it's inconvenient, having to carry a book. However, obviously you can read the book on your screen, but people still like to have an old traditional way of reading books, having the physical book in your hands and keep changing the pages. You can smell the book, you can read it properly.
It reminds me a bit of like having a physical copy of a game as opposed to a digital copy.
There you go.
It's like the same idea.
Yeah, I totally get that, yeah.
It's just
Scary
keeping
thing
it
is that,
traditional.
Yeah, I can't read on an ebook reader or Kindle. I have to have like the physical copy in my hand.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
That's just the way I work. I don't know. What about you guys?
I agree with you. I'm resisting Kindles with every fibre of my body.
Kindle isn't so bad because it has a very nice screen, It's
the
not
glare. There's no glare.
white like iPhone. It does remind you of a paper, isn't it, when you look at Kindle, the old ones.
Yeah, yeah. It's not so bad. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Kindle is a great product. I just, for me personally, I just much prefer having a physical book, and like you said, like the smell of it, and I don't know, I just prefer that. But I think the Kindle is good.
Mhm.
Here's an idea for you. How about they start making games on Kindle?
Oh, right.
Really shitty small games in Kindle, like Tetris or something. I bet EA would do that. Just quick back,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Well, so what do you guys think that EA should do now that the CEO is gone?
Close the company, shut down all the studios, and kill themselves.
Well, that might happen, like inevitably. But like, if you were the CEO of EA right now, what would you do? You're probably like the most massive publisher. You own a ton of different franchises.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do? Just keep on releasing blockbusters?
They did say what they're going to do, actually. They said that they've noticed they have too many IPs being released every year, and they're basically going to refocus and shift their attention onto core IPs to make sure that every year they only have number of IPs, so that the customers basically their attention is focused on just those main games, basically. If that makes sense.
I think that sounds like a horrible idea.
Yeah, I also think so.
It's like, I mean, I want to see Mirror's Edge come back one day. That's
right.
never going to happen. That's their new approach, you know?
Right. I don't want to just see Battlefield 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like every year, the same iterations, the same IPs, Dead Space 12, you know? Eventually, we're going to get bored.
Yeah.
Are we not already?
If we're not already.
Yeah,
which we probably are.
We're close to, you know, the barrier of how much more you can take from some of these IPs.
Right. But one of the things that like really disturbs me is the fact that like as development goes on, and like now we're moving on to PS4 and Xbox 720, then like these blockbusters, let's say Battlefield 4, they cost a fortune to make. Like let's say they cost like $8 million to make or more. And then they have to make a certain amount back in terms of sales. So then, like, let's say with Tomb Raider, Square Enix was very upset because they only got 3.8 million sales. And,
that's not bad.
Which is amazing. Which would be amazing if not for the fact that the development itself costed so much that they had to make back a lot more in order to succeed. So what if they just toned down the development a little bit and didn't go as crazy over it? And then you didn't have to have such expectations, you know? I don't know.
You can't cut down on development costs.
Well, you don't have to make everything as big of a blockbuster, no?
You know, one thing I'd be interested to know is how much it costs to make Tomb Raider and how much it costs to make Uncharted.
Let me give you an idea. When usually game costs between $40 to $80 million.
Right.
When Modern Warfare 2 was made, Activision approached the Infinity Ward and said, here is 60 million backs, take it for development. And they said, we didn't need that much money. Because essentially what happened is that they had all the assets ready, like engine, graphics, animation, sound, etc. So what happens with new IPs is that they do cost more because you have to produce all the new assets. With, for instance, games like Uncharted or, I don't know, say for instance Batman, they have those assets made already. So you only modify them, but you don't have to create the engine from the scratch, which basically reduces the development cost. And when the new IP comes out, like Tomb Raider, that's gonna cost a bit more because it's a new thing.
Right.
But hopefully, in a year of time or year and a half, when they release the Tomb Raider 2, they won't have to spend as much money because half of the assets will be already made. If that makes any sense.
I guess that really brings us back full circle now to Battlefield 4. You know, it could be that they're trying to cut the costs by using similar assets, because the assets look really similar.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of things that were directly from Battlefield.
Yeah, like the textures almost seem the same, and like
the foliage was directly ripped from.
Yeah, the foliage, the explosions, I don't know, a lot of these things.
The animations were new though.
Yeah, the animation, the characters looked different, I think. No?
You know, when you talk about development, because interestingly, Final Fantasy 13, for instance, you know, it took them close to 5 years to develop, and they did sell quite a lot of numbers from that game, isn't it? However, obviously, this being Square Enix, you know, a bunch of greedy assholes, they decided to make some more money by spending no money, and they've released 13.2, which basically, if you put that in the practice, it's like going to McDonald's, taking a cheeseburger, going home, and then microwaving it. It's not going to taste as well, but it's not going to cost you anything to do it. That's what they did, basically. They've reused all the assets, copy and pasted them. It took them a year to do that, and they said, here it is, a new game, you know? And according to what you're saying, Anthony, it's similar to what you're doing with Battlefield 4.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see a lot of similarities between how it operates, but I mean, I can kind of see how it's probably to the developers, it's a bit of a lifeline, isn't it? Once you've got an IP that you can continue, isn't it? It's like we're going to have to sink all this cost to make a bit of a return back. So although I don't necessarily support how they just copy-paste some stuff, I can see why they do.
it's still a business. It has to make money, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel bad for the publishers and developers. Like, you know, EA just wants to stay afloat. They all see like this noose around their necks. So like, as much as we hate them, they're just like scrambling for a life preserver, you know, and we just get splashed in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they did say that Battlefield 4, I think that the difference between Battlefield 3 and 4 is that they want to make a stronger single player campaign. No,
I thought you would say there was a new logo.
yeah,
But yeah, that's the new thing.
That's the new
logo.
thing.
There you go.
yeah, a new
This
gun,
time
a
it's
new
not
gun,
orange and blue.
right?
Yeah, brilliant work, someone.
Or like
Well, I think that's a good decision to try and enhance the campaign mode, because I think shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield, they rely way too much on the
multiplayer.
You know, it's like if you look at Modern Warfare 2, the campaign for that was like
Not very
good. Beat it in like 2 hours or something. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, it was crazy, and it certainly felt like they were skimping on it and just putting a minimal amount of effort into it. That people would just buy it for the.
It was also really easy. No.
Yeah, you know, and like I don't know, maybe it's kind of old-fashioned of me, but I think like a game should stand up on its single player alone, you know, not just the multiplayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bought Battlefield 3 and I didn't really play any multiplayer because I didn't want to. But then you've got a reversed methodology where what happens is they make a really strong single player and then they feel that they have to add a multiplayer, like in the case of Mass Effect 3 or Tomb Raider, which was disastrous. All basically not as good as it could be, or there was a need for that. Because there is that pressure these days that everything has to be online and multiplayer, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally. Like when Skyrim was going to come out, you know, everyone was asking, you know, is there going to be multiplayer? Is there going to be multiplayer? And in the end, they just went, no, we're just going to do the single player. And
Yeah, and that was the right move.
Yeah, it's like you said with Tomb Raider, that's got multiplayer. And I mean, it's functional, but if it wasn't there at all, I wouldn't feel like it was missing something.
Yeah.
I think it stands up.
I think, if anything, like, it's quite brave that BioShock has released in 2013 and it hasn't got multiplayer.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I applaud the developers for saying early on we are having nothing to do with multiplayer in this game. This is a single player game.
I tell you what's weird about it is, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but the level design would support multiplayer with minimal work.
No, you're not allowed to give me any spoilers. Spoilers.
Alert.
No, it's like, it's something where we wouldn't really, you can see they wouldn't have had to adjust much, you know? They could have done it, they just didn't want to. And I think that's really, that's quite cool of them, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree, you know. I mean, sometimes it works, you know, like, I think Rockstar are really good at it with Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto. They really delivered on the multiplayer when they could have just gone with single player. But, you know, I respect a developer when they just say, no, we're just going to stick with the single player.
Right.
If anything else, they always worry that when they deliver a game, they want to extend the lifespan of the given title, because when you think about the length of single player, you're looking at 10 to 20, max 20 hours of gameplay, and then what happens, you're going to put away that game, you're not going to ever play it again, so they're trying to extend the life of that game. And for instance, with The Last of Us, I'm not sure they should be doing multiplayer, but they are doing it, and it's probably going to look very similar to Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 multiplayer, which I thought was absolutely nonsense and pointless. It wasn't bad, I just didn't see the point. But if anything else, you know, I think it's just a case of trying to extend the lifespan of the title.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a shame, really, because, I mean, in a sense, you know, when you get a single-player game that's single-player only, and you really love it, you'll finish it, and you'll probably start it again from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to happen...
Or a few years later.
Pretty rarely now, because everything's so cinematic, you're just going to be watching the same thing over and over. I mean, I know it's similar in old games. There was a lot more control than there is nowadays. I find like you kind of have to turn to multiplayer afterwards in a sense, unless you just want to sit back and watch the exact same storyline watching a movie again.
Right. Or they make it like that there's two branching storylines or something. You could, morality choices you can make and have a different outcome. So then you're just watching, like a whole separate movie, this movie or that movie.
It is nice when that gets implemented in a sense, because it does give you a second playthrough, but...
Right, it gives you a second playthrough, but why can't it be a second playthrough because the game is enjoyable to play and you don't have to watch cutscenes?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It doesn't seem to happen as often these days.
Right. Now we get to pretend we're the grumpy old men who are like waxing off about the old days. That's always fun.
But obviously games do offer you a branching storyline, like for instance The Witcher or Skyrim or any open world game. But I myself found that I don't like playing through single player more than once.
Yeah, me neither.
I've played through Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. I only played it through once because I felt happy with my ending. I didn't have to go and do everything the opposite way, because all it would change is basically the outcome. That excludes obviously Mass Effect 3, and it would basically change how people talk to you, the conversation. But in the end, everything else stays the same, so it's quite artificial when you think about this. The choices and the story that they tell you, it's different. It's really not different. It's just bits and pieces that change alongside.
Yeah, you can tell it's very artificial. Yeah.
I agree that a lot of games are artificial, but I think some games definitely are replayable if like Skyrim or something.
Yeah.
It's just a case of playing as the same character making different choices. If you went through the first playing as an archer, then you could have a whole different experience playing as a mage or something.
Yeah.
Or like Borderlands, choosing a different character class. So I think some games are capable of it, but I agree that like I don't know, Infamous. It's a really good game, the first playthrough, but there is quite artificial like moral choice where it pretty much just changes what colour your lightning is.
Yeah, red or blue, really.
Yeah.
Well, there's also like you could have morality choices that affect like will you kill this person or will you not kill them or save them, and that will affect like who you're going to become. And then you could have other types of games that like you could choose to play through the game like in a stealth mode or with a certain type of strategy, or like you were saying, like as a mage. So like there can be different like variables that are causing you to replay a game. It doesn't only have to be from like storyline. It could also be
absolutely
strategy, which I happen to like that better when it's not storyline. Like give me one storyline when I play through it. But strategy, like okay, it's fun to try out different things and see what works, what doesn't work,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are games that you've played a number of times because you simply enjoyed it. You can't quite put a name on it, but for instance, I've played through Gothic 1 like 7 times because it was that good. It's not a game that was, hugely publicized in media, but it was a great game in my experience. And Final Fantasy VII, for instance, I've played a number of times because I really enjoyed it, both for story and gameplay. And sometimes you just want to replay it for the gameplay's sake, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Like I played Red Dead Redemption for a few times, and like it's always the same. There's not much gameplay's the same, but I just think it's such a good game. It's immersive and the story's so good, and I enjoy the gameplay.
Yeah, when you really love a game, sometimes you just want to hold on to that.
Yeah,
and just like preserve it, or if it's like a nostalgic retro game, you want to just like go back and try and like relive Final Fantasy VII again. I've done that also a few times.
You know what they say about revisiting your childhood dreams, basically. When you go back to, you realize, oh shit, this game is so bad.
Yeah, that's happened a few times.
When you're a child, everything looks great, doesn't it? If you were 8 now and play all these amazing games that come out, everything will be absolutely shining and beautiful, and you would love every single one of those games. But then 10 years later, you'll be like, oh, how could I like this? This is such a piece of shit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm always scared to go back, but it's such a great feeling when you go back and it still does.
It's
stand
still
up.
good, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Strangest thing is, I can't see myself coming back to this generation much in the future. It's all
that's true.
visual based nowadays. And,
yeah.
you know, we're not going to have that nostalgia come 10 years because we're going to have
It's because
that.
you're old.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing's magical anymore.
Yeah. Just old grumpy man.
Depressed.
Complaining about everything.
Depressed.
I don't like it.
Yeah. I hate games. You know.
I hate
They're really like, what do you do all day? I play games all day. I hate
I
them.
torture myself.
Right.
I have been thinking about that. The other day I was thinking, like, I wonder if in 10 years, when we're on, I don't know, PS5 or whatever, they're going to release, you know, charged HD or something.
hmm
I think that would be kind of weird to see in a way because of the gap between, you know, the remakes that they're doing now and the remakes that they'd be doing then.
Then,
They already had a good level of visual quality at this time.
That's what
Yeah.
they thought in the 80s when they made Star Wars. And now you look at it and it all looks like a circus, isn't it?
Yeah, or like puppets and stuff.
Yeah. You still go back to it and think, wow, it's still amazing what they did,
Yeah.
considering the times and
hmm
the equipment they had. And speaking of which, you know, there's new Star Wars. Obviously, when it's going to come out in 2 to 3 years' time, we're going to see more Star Wars games.
Oh right. Yeah.
Star Wars everything, really. Caps, T-shirts, hoodies, Star Wars tattoos on your forehead, everything.
Yeah.
I just hope they can screw it up.
I just for Battlefield 3. Why can't I have that?
What?
That's all I want is Battlefield 3 and Star Wars Battle. No, Battlefront. Oh,
Star Wars. What is it? Battlefront.
Battlefront.
Yeah.
I'm calling it.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new video they've released?
I heard about it, but no, because I never played any of the originals.
Oh right, it was a very decent game, very pleasant to play. It really did make you feel like you're that soldier, or clone, or a droid, whatever, in that Star Wars universe. And I would be very happy to see what they do with the sequel to that. And a lot of people are really asking for that.
hmm
Have they announced officially they're going to make another one, or is it just speculation at this point?
I can't tell you for sure. I just seen the video. It might have been a leak of some sort, but it looked very. It didn't look particularly original. I mean, when you talk about originality in FPS genre, is there any, guys? Is there originality in FPS genre?
Not much.
I think some have character, but that's about
Yeah.
as far as it goes, isn't it?
Like
Bioshock and Bioshock
Right.
Infinite.
Yeah, it's got character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unique in its own way, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's still an FPS, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Bioshock was like Ayn Rand, objectivism. It's showing like the logical endpoint of objectivism, of Ayn Rand. So, which that was very new for games. Like, here's a whole philosophy that not many gamers might know about, Ayn Rand's objectivism, and like here's what would happen if it actually was created in this underwater world. It would turn into like bloody murder. So. It was like a new concept. Most games don't do that.
But in terms of gameplay, it's very narrow, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Not looking at revolution.
No.
It's basically a car industry, motor industry. Ever since 60s, it's always been polishing the existing product. You know, the car had 4 wheels for 50 years now. Nothing changed in that department. What they're doing is basically making it ride a bit more comfortable. So be polishing
Right.
the existing formula, and that's what happens with games these days. Not all of them, but in some specific ones like FPS, that's what they do. Just small step, forward.
That was like the whole generation, basically. It was like a
Yeah.
generation of polishing. Like they.
It's going
yeah.
to continue by the look of things, isn't it?
But I think people are going to get very burnt out if things don't like do something new.
But I don't think so, man. And I'll tell you why. Because by the time we get bored of it,
hmm
don't forget that there are younger generations of people. Young people, not like us 50-year-old crap.
hmm
So I think you're not just looking at existing people, because as people grow up, they tend to have less time for gaming and they become a bit more bitchy about that.
hmm
So the market is looking at younger audience, and they are much easier to
To please.
Yeah, to please, basically.
But like, if let's say you look at Tony Hawk, Tony Hawk used to be like #1 in the sales every year, and then they crunched it out every year after year, and eventually people got bored and it started to flop the sales.
Yeah.
And they tried all sorts of new tactics of like changing up the series, doing new things, and they even got pretty weird in the most recent ones, like Tony Hawk Ride.
Gee.
So
yeah, I think they, to be honest, I think there was two factors. Not just that. I think Skate coming out by EA done a lot of damage because for people who
There
like
goes EA
skateboarding
again.
and
It
games.
seems like it's the highlight of tonight.
yeah,
But no,
you can't escape
like,
them.
That hit home with skaters a lot more than Tony Hawk ever could because of the control scheme. I think that was a fatal nail in the coffin for that franchise.
Yeah, certainly.
I don't know, I have like the feeling that the game industry is gonna follow the movie industry a lot. I mean that like you don't just watch action film after action film the entire year, right? It's mixed up with a lot of different other type of things, and sometimes also like you have the indie films and like, you know,
Twilight.
yeah, Twilight's another highlight of tonight.
Let's talk about Twilight for a moment. Should there be a game about Twilight?
No.
Would you play as Bella?
what would you do?
Play as Bella, or what was his name? The hair dude. That's what I call it. The spark.
Do you choose the vampire or
Wouldn't that
The
basically be?
beastly dude?
She's the whining dude.
Yeah.
Not to take deep Nukem further.
do you think maybe we'll get some upvotes because we're dissing Twilight?
Oh, please do. If you like Twilight,
Yeah.
do comment.
Yeah.
Please do feel free to.
We should throw in Justin Bieber somewhere here, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen a picture of him.
Recently.
Yeah,
Topless.
so he was getting
Yeah.
thrown in a car just recently, wasn't he, for starting IGN? So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, so how do we get into that?
Justin Bieber game. On to the next.
Justin Bieber game. They have a lot of games of Justin Bieber, like Kill Justin Bieber, Dress Up Justin
Adventure,
Bieber.
Justin Bieber.
Yeah. Justin Bieber's that's a good strategy, no, to make a lot of money.
Yeah, take something somebody hates and then just make a flash game where you kill it.
Yeah,
Easy money.
easy money.
Oh yeah, they did that with. Do you remember the killing?
Bin Laden.
A mass killing in
Oh.
one of the American schools, and someone made a flash game out of it.
Of killing people?
Yeah, two psychos basically went inside the school building and started shooting people. Twenty or more people died, and someone made a flash game out of it where you basically walk around the college grounds and kill people.
Oh my.
It's kind of like making a game about concentration camps. You know, here's your like
Right.
property. You have to make death camps, gas chambers, sleeping chambers, and you have to kill prisoners. If someone made a game based on that, I'm just wondering what kind of reception would it get? Would people actually play it?
I don't think it would get past the ESRB, to be honest.
Right.
Well, you can publish anything on the internet. There's no.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, if it wasn't a proper release.
It probably exists somewhere.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Mr. Creative, do make it. We want to see what would be the reception of that.
That's very funny, that game that you said about the college shooting. It's very meta because people have been talking about like violence in games after that shooting. That like maybe games have caused it, and then someone makes a game about shooting.
Because
like
you know why? Games are evil and we should not play them.
right.
Influence kids to kill themselves, and anyone who finds themselves playing games should be immediately consulted with a doctor and see a dentist, probably.
What do you guys think about that in general?
I think,
That
to be
topic.
honest, like,
Yeah.
It's really offensive to a variety of people. Right? The thing I find disgusting, yeah, is that people will go out there and accuse game developers of having put all this work into trying to portray a
Promote
message like
violence.
that somehow.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and to be honest, I think the most offensive thing about it is that they're pointing the finger at an innocent and refusing to pass judgment on the person who actually done it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like distracting from the real thing.
I think the people that play video games for violence are people who have no idea about video games. Video games as medium are very similar to movies in that, you know, you have video games like Call of Duty and stuff, which are kind of like just action movies that you just, you know, play through for fun and stuff. But then there's also video games that are like, you know, high-profile films. You know, like Shadow of the Colossus is like the video game equivalent of, you know, a really high-class, respected film. You know, like, and I just, you know, like, it's just, I think it's just easy to point a finger at video games because, you know, the majority of sort of middle-aged adults don't know much about them, so it's just easy to put a finger, you know, and it's like, they don't even do the research. That's what annoys me, you know, it's like, when Mass Effect came out, that got accused of, like, being a game about being rapey, you know, and it's like, where do they get this? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Mass Effect got slapped for sexuality, and violence, and a couple of other things, isn't it?
It's so weird because like you go on TV and you're not going to see anything much different, right?
I'd say that, to be honest, like, TV and movies have a whole lot more graphic content in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably do more damage to an individual that, I don't know, psychologically
For sure.
affected mind.
Because you don't even think about it as a game over there. You're watching somebody's, you know, life or something like that.
There's a particular DVD that comes to mind for me that's like, I know it's available in this country and it's not available in a lot, called Faces of Death. I won't go into it, but the content that's shown in there is extremely graphic and it's real. We don't get that in games. That could genuinely damage somebody psychologically. But we don't delve into that field in games, you know?
Right.
It seems like we're promoting violence on this podcast. If there are kids listening to this, we advise you that you stop listening to us right now.
This podcast is rated
18.
18, yeah, probably.
18 to mature.
I think people who, you know, are unbalanced and are going to end up doing something horrific, you know, like, you know, murder someone or something, I think they're going to do it no matter what, eventually. Something will set them off, whether it's through a game or a book, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not the specific film or game or whatever it is they play a role, you know, it would happen anyway, essentially, from them watching something or playing something or reading something. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain whatever medium it is that they were into, you know.
Well, yeah, well, I always think of like how my first time I watched Dexter, you know, the show Dexter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the show a lot. The first time I ever saw it, as I like, you know, watched the scene where like cuts up the body into pieces and then drops it into the ocean, like puts it in a bag, drops in the ocean, and I was like, ugh, I can't watch this. This is like so gross.
It's violence, isn't it?
Yeah, but then I saw like some more reviews about it, how it's a really good show, and then I started watching it again, and like I got used to it. So I was like, oh, thinking back, I guess that means that like the more I saw it, the more it lowered my sensitivities. But then, like in my community, there was like a very horrible thing that like event that everyone was like very scared by because there was some like crazy person, some kid went missing in the community, and then like for 3 days everyone was searching for him, and then after 3 days they found him that like some crazy person lured him into his house, chopped him up into pieces, kept him in the freezer, and then dumped it into like a trash dumpster. So like everyone, I was like very affected by it. Everybody was affected by it because we knew the kid. Yeah. So the fact that I watched Dexter and like I was desensitized to the show didn't mean that when it came to real life, I was desensitized to it. And even more so, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna go start cutting people up into pieces because I watched Dexter, you know?
Well, at least not yet.
Not yet, yeah. Give me some time.
I'm giving you a week. Anyway, guys, we I think we're reaching a 15-minute mark. So.
Oh, it's just getting good.
We were getting to the juicy bits, but anyway.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Are you guys okay to wrap out for tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd,
I have to get some sleep tonight.
I'd like to
Yeah.
say as a closing comment that we are not sponsored by Electronic Arts. We are sponsored by Activision.
Call of Duty always wins over Battlefield. No.
Yes. Any closing comments, guys?
Yeah, you're active. Could we have some money for that last comment?
Yeah, and I want to let the FBI know that I was just joking about cutting up bodies. Do not take me seriously, and everyone should play BioShock Infinite before the week is over.
And take
Before you read spoilers, don't read spoilers.
Yeah, don't read spoilers. Just play it.
Yeah,
Yes.
see, on forums, there's people trying to give away the ending.
Yeah, stay in school, guys.
And plug your internet connection cable from your computer. Play the game
Mm-hmm.
and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for listening to us. We'll be back in presumably 2 weeks' time. Do let us know what you thought about our podcast. And thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. Good night.
And we are